love is what budgets do not get from this article by Jeremy Hope and Robin Fraser. The article titled, Who Needs Budgets? And they state that we don't. They state that budgets consume too much time and bring too little value to an organization. They focus on fixed targets and performance incentives. And they even go on to give an example of Ford Motors that spent, after analyzing and viewing, spent $1.2 billion on budgeting. And they reinforce that with a statistic that states that budgeting takes approximately 25,000 person day to $1 billion in revenue. So to understand budgets and why it's so dominant in today's markets, industries, and organizations, we have to understand the timeline, we have to understand the history. It started in the 1920s as a tool for managing cost and cash flows for larger industries such as General Motors. It moved on to the 1960s where it became a fixed performance contract. And then later in the early 1970s, they were relied on for financial targets and incentives. And then between 1980s and 1990s, business units became more focused and concerned on meetings regarding sales targets rather than satisfying customers. A prime example, and an example that the article gives and that I want to touch on, is WorldCom. CEO Bernard Evers had the company by a tight budget grip. The article states that former employees said, quote, "You would have a budget and he would mandate that you had 2% under budget." And this was a reference from the Financial Times. So WorldCom deviated and skewed from being a company that wanted to know its consumers, wanted to know the direction in which the industry was heading economically, to focusing on disempowering the frontline, discouraging information sharing, and became slow to respond to market development. And what did that cause? Well, the company ran out bankrupt and under financial investigation. So, as you listen to this, you begin to wonder, okay, if not budgets, then what? And the article has the answer for that. They state that the best answer is rolling forecasts. Why? Because they are created every 3 or so months, and they cover the same quarters typically between 5 and 8. And there's 2 reasons that the article states as to why they're more accurate. They are refreshed based on economical trends, based on consumer demand, and also no one has a reason to manipulate the numbers because there's no set profit targets. Some alternative goals and measures are, a financial one would be cost to income ratios, and a non-financial one would be time to market move. So the differences. Personnel is responsible for gaining the results or obtaining the results, and they're no longer responsible for achieving predetermined strategical targets or goals. So what happens? That a business unit now is compared to other internal business units as a way to compare them, as well as other external units and world-class benchmarks. So at this point you must be asking yourself, is it worth abandoning budgets? Well, the statistics in the article surely reinforce that. Why? Because they state that project leaders save approximately 95% of time used on budgeting and forecasting. They also have business units set longer term goals, and also empowers the organization by allowing people to make mistakes, but then giving them the opportunity to also fix them. And with all the information that is being gathered, now that is provided and it's seen, they can also report unusual patterns, unusual trends, that are unfolding for them to be able to maneuver the direction in which the organization is going. So we have to ask ourselves, who's done it so far? Who's innovated? A prime example would be what the article states, Svenska Handelsbanken. They dropped budgeting around the 1970s, and ever since then they've outperformed their Scandinavian rivals. And now they're considered one of the most cost-efficient banks by achieving a 45% cost-to-income ratio, where the standard, the international standard, was 60% and up. Another example is ASO. They abandoned budgeting around 1995, and they have overtaken their Swedish counterparts in profitability. Before abandoning budgets, ASO had 14 centers. After a series of acquisitions, now they're up in the 200s. So, I leave two questions. If you are the organization, manager, senior management, that looks far beyond the horizon, that wants to be the front runner of innovation, that wants to run your organization, business, or unit efficiently, then the change needs to be made. And you need to ask yourself the second question. Will you make the switch?